Hi YouTube. I promised that I would pull up a short video on how I installed the Tutoro oiler, automatic oiler, to the NC750X. It's been a bit of a delay, so for the subscribers that have been waiting for this, I give my apologies. My initial video got corrupted when I was processing it, so this version is going to be a cut down one, but I'll include all the important points that come with that. As you can see, the oiler has been installed. I've taken it around the block for a few rides to get the adjustment right, and I'll explain a bit about that later. But as you can see, my initial plan was to try and use a P-clip that was going to wrap around this part of the frame, and then I was going to bolt the bracketry that comes with the Tutoro kit to that P-clip. That turned out to be not a good idea. There was just too much play. There was like a rubber insert within the P-clip to stop protect the frame, and that had just too much give in it. So when the oiler was installed to that P-clip, just the weight of the installer was making it bounce around a little bit, and I weren't happy with that. So the way I reverted to that is to using the bracketry that come with the kit. And as you can see here, there's a little flat pad. This has got a sticky pad attached to it. Sorry, it's not sticky, a foam pad attached to that, and that provides just a flat sort of surface with a little sort of T-piece off of here to be able to mount that to. And as you can see, I've cable tied that to the frame, and this is pretty solid. Look, you can see that it's pretty solid once you get these cable ties tight, and I'm much happier with that than the P-clip arrangement. One of the things to bear in mind is that when you mount this, the frame is obviously not moving, but the swing arm will be moving up and down when you move. So you need to create sufficient clearance between the chain guard, which sits here, and the frame. Initially, I had this positioned a bit further in on the bike, and obviously the chain guard would foul on that and smash it around. So try to avoid that. So what I've done is I've set it a little bit off. As you can see here, even when the sort of the swing arm would be at full extension, it would not hit the oiler or this bracketry here. So you have to have it a little bit offset. This causes another slight little problem in that the center of the oiler, which you can probably just see in there where I'm pointing, sits sort of a bit proud of where the swing arm is. So when you bring the cable up, you can see in the video here, you end up with this sort of coming out a little bit because it comes out from the swing arm to be able to line up with that. That distance is not very much, it's probably only about 15 mil or so, but that creates a little bit of a kink here. Another thing I was concerned about when I mounted it here was that the pillion, if a pillion was sitting in here on this footrest, they could potentially, the leg would come down and be able to move this oiler. I've tried that, and that doesn't happen. So it's all sat behind the guard, and the person's leg come down with the foot on here, knees come up obviously up here, and you end up with this shape, and the oiler is quite tucked away. So I think that's a good position. Another tip in terms of locating it, I did try to locate it a little bit higher up and bring it in under here, but there's you won't be able to see, but there's a shield here to protect the sort of the underside of the seat and the various sort of compartment that sits in under the seat there. And this plastic seat here stopped me being able to get in between the frame and this guard, and it was really tight. So this was about as high up as I could take it into there. I did experiment with mounting it a bit lower, but what then that did is that created, because it has to sit out a little bit, just not enough clearance between the foot hanger here and the thing. So you'll find this up, I just pushed this up as far as I could to get a bit of clearance, and you'll get a good idea. You'll experiment if you fit it yourself where it's best suited, but that was there, and I was quite pleased how this is held together. One of the things which I will say is the bracketry that you set up. I tried to do this initially when it was on the bike, so I installed this bit first and then tried to bolt these this sort of like curved bit to that, and then there's a little L-shaped piece that sits in there, which I'll show in a second, and it's just too fiddly. So one of the tips I can give is I assembled this off the bike where it was nice and easy, kept it loose. When I then fitted this bit with the cable ties here, I was then able to position it, and using the little Allen key that comes with the kit and a spanner, I was able to tighten these up and get these sufficiently tight. Another thing, it's in the manual, it's not like I've had a brilliant idea or anything, is they recommend, they come with these little like spring washers, well more like sort of little castellated washers rather than sprung washers, and they recommend that you fit them between the two plates, so it would be sitting in there. You can just see that the cable tie just slots in behind that, and that's to create a better grip. So initially I put them the other side of the nut, which is on the inside, but having read the manual, it recommends to put them between that, and I must say doing that has really made that a lot more tighter. You can see there's no real movement up there, and that's a good thing. So that's one little thing to remember. The other thing, and hopefully you'll be able to see here, is this this curved bit here. When I tried to bolt that bolts onto one of these here, which meant that the oiler was round the other way. So you could, if you wanted to, you could see that there's the oiler holes are here. Let me see if I can get the torch in to show that a little bit better. Right, so you end up with two holes in the oiler, one either side, to fix to. You could mount this side, so this oiler would swing for 190 degrees and mount it up there. It's just I weren't really happy with it. There just wasn't sufficient clearance between the curvature of the frame here, you can see, and it was resting on the frame too much. This way I've got a gap, look, you can see I've got a good gap in between there, so I can pass that up and down, and that's good. So I fitted the little L-shaped piece to the end of that. So we had this foam lined bracket here, which fits in there. The curved bit, which is really quite well designed, it allows you to get a number of different positions, and then I fitted the L-shaped piece in, and then just bolted the L-shaped piece and through the other hole on this side to the oiler. And what that then did is it allows me to obviously be able to see my levels on this side, and on this side I've got easy access to the adjuster. So that's where I positioned it, and that's really the oiler bit. One of the things which the instructions suggest you do, and see if that could give sufficient light, to do is to make sure that this oiler is as vertical as possible. So I've just got a set square, and I used the sort of the little bubble here, so you can see here, to try and get that as vertical as possible. And I set it up this way, and that's as good as it is. One of the things they say in the manual is if this is too much of an angle, then it won't. The valve don't work effectively. It sticks and stops the oiling in the chain. So that's how I installed the oiler. Right, the next bit that I tackled, and this was before I installed the hose, was the shark fin that comes with it, and that obviously has to sit underneath the bike. So what we'll try to do, hopefully, that can get it low enough. But what you'll see here is the actual shark fin itself. And that just cable tied to the swing arm, and then you loop the hose and the nozzle through that shark fin, and I'll explain about that in a bit more second, to be able to get the right angle for the dispensing nozzle to be able to come up and touch your sprocket just above this line. If you can see this line here, you can see, look, there's just a thin bit of oil sitting in that, and that keeps it nice and easy for this to be able to flow round. Drop the oil onto the sprocket, and then centrifugal force will force the oil out onto the rollers. Now this sprocket here, the manual suggested that I just use the cable ties. One of the things which you probably won't be able to see, but I'll try, is you can see it's at a slight angle. To be able to get the right angle in, to be able to touch the dispensing nozzle against the sprocket. Now, I assembled this off the bike, and then when I first fixed it, when you put the cable ties on, this was able to move around. So I uninstalled it, and what I ended up putting is a bit of double-sided tape. I've got some rather strong double-sided tape onto that, and then I positioned that, and you can see it's at a slight angle. I positioned that and stuck it to the swing arm, making sure it was obviously clean before I stuck it on, and then used the cable ties to come over the shark fin. When you look at the shark fin, it's got like two little slots, and you may be able to see that in sort of one of the later parts of this video, and therefore these cable ties can be behind those little slots quite easily, and it's held quite strongly. You can see that's really, like I'm rocking the bike, that's really quite a strong piece. The way that the nozzle fits in through the shark fin, and it's all in the manual, and I'll put some pictures up hopefully to try and illustrate it a bit better, is that your hose comes forward of the shark fin through this hole and sits in behind. On the back of this shark fin there's like a little slot, yeah, well not slot, like a little ledge that the hose can sit on and runs down, and then it asks you to cable tie the hose to the shark fin. Obviously you want these to be firm but not super tight, because it will depress the hose. And that brings me on to the actual dispensing part itself. Within the last part of the hose, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it there? It starts there. You can see it is like clear hose, and then there's a like metal wire that runs through that, and that allows you to bend that hose and shape it to get it how you want. One of the things that is really interesting is they give you the nozzle at the end and ask you to insert that into that hose. The instructions ask you to leave a gap between the end of the wire and the start of the nozzle. So I've got probably there about 2mm gap, and when you've got it off and it's in your hands, you can adjust that quite easily. And it's just a matter of pushing that in until the nozzle butts up against this black bit of the dispensing nozzle there, and you can see, but you've got to make sure you get that gap. And what the installation notes were saying, if that gap isn't there, then potentially with the wire and the nozzle, it can block up, and then you've obviously got to remove it and unclean it. So that's the top tip. Make sure you do that, and make sure you just leave that little gap there. And when I first read the instructions, I weren't quite sure what they meant, but when you actually get the pieces in your hand, it sits up quite nice and easy. The other thing while we're down at this area is the nozzle is just a plain tube, and it comes off flat. I cut it at a slight angle, so it angled away this way from the sprocket, so that the end of the nozzle was able to touch on the surface of the sprocket, and then because it's cut away this way, the oil can flow down and onto the sprocket there. I was just a little bit concerned that without that cut at a slight angle coming out this way, so the long bit would be against the sprocket and the shorter cut would be up here, is that it would be just like a main tube just sort of putting in there, and that could get blocked up and clogged. So with that little cut going this way, I don't think that's going to happen. So then it was just a case of being able to, once this was done, was to be able to find a route for the hose, to be able to hook up to the oiler. So the way that I did that originally was I let it find its natural route. You can see the route here, hopefully. It runs under the swing arm, up here, up the side of the swing arm, down, and creates this little bit of a loop there. This loop is needed, and don't have this tight. And the instructions manual tells you this and warns you for this. So it's because the swing arm is moving in a sort of an up and down motion in relationship to the bike, and all your suspension is then working, which means that this area between here is gonna close up and lengthen if you go there. So when I had the bike on the side stand, this is the complete length. It's not going to get any longer than that, because that's the restriction of where the shock is stopping the swing arm coming down, but it can come right the way up, and you need to make sure you've got obviously sufficient clearance here but sufficient slack in there to allow that movement to happen, so when it comes down it doesn't pull tight. You can see the route. You might be able to find a better route if you wanted, but what it does need to be, it needs to be gravity fed. So I initially thought about bringing the hose up here, running it along here and hooking it up, but I don't think that would give sufficient gravity feed, so I've brought it this way and tried to bring the hose up in as much of a vertical line to the little spout which connects to here on the oiler. The other thing which was also really quite interesting, they supply these little sticky pads. Yeah, these are just peel back pads that stick onto the frame. I did use them. You can see, what have I got? I've got one there, one there, one there and one there. On the bottom ones, I run the cable ties over the top of the sticky pad around there to hold that in position, because I didn't have complete 100% confidence that these sticky pads were going to be supply sufficient sort of adhesion and not fall off, and I didn't want this hose falling down and coming entangled in the chain. So I've stuck them on. They did hold pretty good actually, and then supported that by using the cable to come over the top of these. Now what you can also see, I don't know, well you might be, hopefully you'll be able to see, is when this runs up the shark fin, this is supported to the shark fin by these little small cable ties, and then you've got these larger cable ties supporting the shark fin to there. If you know, I didn't bring that cable tie around the hose. I wanted that to have a little bit there. I didn't want to depress it, and I wanted a really firm grip holding the shark fin to the swing arm. But when I come to these ones around the pads, because they're going onto the back of the plastic little grip that holds these sticky pads in, I've pulled that in quite tight. But don't make sure that you don't close that gap by making it so tight, because you'll restrict the flow coming through there. And I'm quite pleased with that. Obviously you do have the visible thing of having these cable ties along your swing arm, but hey, that's one of the sacrifices you've got to make. You also note that I used the sticky pads here and here just to provide me with a little bit of a route round, and try to keep the cable as close in line with the swing arm as possible. Anyway, there you go, it's done. Hopefully you've seen it's quite a simple thing. There is no modification to the bike. If I was to take it off, all I would have to do was clip these cable ties, pull these sticky pads off, clip those cable ties, and I would be able to remove it in no time at all. And it appears to be working okay.